The vast emptiness of space stretched out endlessly, filled with the quiet hum of distant stars. On board the cruiser Eagle's Call, Daniel Harper stood near a large viewport, staring at the endless sea of stars. He was young, just a lieutenant, but his sharp eyes missed little. The ship floated silently near the edge of the Empire's territory, far from any major planets or stations. It had been weeks since anything exciting happened, and boredom hung heavy in the air. The Empire had grown too confident, too relaxed after centuries without real conflict. Everyone assumed their dominance would last forever. Nearby, Rachel Monroe sat at her station, scrolling through streams of data on her screen. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she sorted through reports that seemed meaningless at first glance. But something about the latest batch caught her attention. Strange energy readings had appeared near the border, faint but persistent. At first, she thought it might be a glitch in the sensors, but the pattern didn't match anything natural. She leaned closer to the screen, frowning slightly. Something wasn't right. Daniel walked over to her desk, curious about what held her focus so intently. "Anything interesting?" he asked casually, leaning against the edge of her workstation. Rachel glanced up at him, her expression serious. "Maybe. There are some odd energy spikes coming from the outer rim. They're small, but they're consistent. I've never seen anything like them before." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You think it's worth reporting?" "I already did," she replied, turning back to her screen. "But you know how things go around here. Unless it's blowing up our ships, no one pays much attention." He nodded, knowing she was right. The Empire had grown complacent, relying more on its reputation than actual vigilance. Still, there was something unsettling about those readings. Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, though he couldn't explain why. Later that evening, as the crew settled into their routines, a sudden alarm blared through the ship. Red lights flashed across the corridors, and everyone rushed to their posts. Rachel sprinted to the bridge, her heart pounding. When she arrived, Captain William Hayes was already barking orders, his voice calm but firm. "Report," he demanded. "Sir, multiple unidentified objects have appeared just outside our perimeter," one of the officers replied, his hands flying over the controls. They came out of nowhere. On the main screen, grainy images showed sleek, angular shapes emerging from the darkness of space. The ships were unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. Their surfaces shimmered faintly, reflecting the light of nearby stars. They were massive, dwarfing even the largest Imperial vessels. A hush fell over the bridge as everyone stared in awe and fear. "What do we know about them?" Captain Hayes asked, his eyes fixed on the screen. "Nothing yet, sir," another officer answered. "We're trying to establish communication." Before anyone could say more, a single message crackled across all frequencies. The voice was cold and mechanical, sending chills down everyone's spines. "This is Earth. Stand down or be destroyed." The words echoed in the silence that followed. No one spoke. The Empire had always considered itself the greatest power in the galaxy, untouchable and supreme. Now, faced with an unknown force claiming to represent Earth, doubt crept into their minds. Was this a bluff, or was the Empire about to face something far beyond its understanding? Captain Hayes broke the silence. "Prepare for battle," he ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. "And someone get me answers. Now." As the crew scrambled to follow his commands, Rachel exchanged a worried glance with Daniel. Whatever was happening, it felt like the beginning of something big. Neither of them realized just how much their lives, and the fate of the entire Empire, were about to change. The silence on the bridge of the Eagle's Call was deafening. Everyone stared at the screen, watching the strange ships hover ominously just beyond their range. The message from Earth had been clear and chilling. Stand down or be destroyed. It wasn't a request, it was a warning. Captain William Hayes stood tall in the center of the room, his face unreadable but his mind racing. He didn't know who these invaders were or what they wanted, But he couldn't afford to show weakness. "Sir," one of the officers called out, breaking the tension. "They're powering up weapons." Hayes clenched his jaw. "Raise shields. Divert all available power to defense systems." His voice was steady, but inside, he felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This wasn't just about the asterisk Eagles call asterisk. If they made the wrong move, the entire empire could be at risk. Rachel Monroe sat at her station, her fingers flying over the controls as she tried to analyze the enemy ships. Their technology was unlike anything she'd ever seen. The energy signatures were off the charts, and their designs suggested advancements far beyond what the Empire possessed. She glanced up at Daniel, who was standing nearby. His face was pale, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the situation with quiet determination. Before anyone could react further, beams of light shot out from the alien ships. They moved faster than anything the crew had ever witnessed, slicing through space with terrifying precision. The first blast hit an Imperial destroyer, cutting it in half like paper. Explosions erupted in the void, lighting up the darkness with fiery bursts. Panic spread quickly among the fleet as ship after ship fell under the relentless assault. "What are we dealing with here?" Daniel muttered under his breath, his hands gripping the edge of a console tightly. He'd never felt so powerless. "Weapons aren't working," shouted another officer, frustration evident in his voice. "Our shots aren't even scratching their shields." Captain Hayes gritted his teeth. "Fall back. Regroup and form a defensive line." But even as he gave the order, he knew it might not be enough. The enemy's firepower was overwhelming, and their tactics were flawless. Every attempt to counterattack ended in failure. Back on the Empire's capital world, news of the attack reached Chancellor Elizabeth Grant. Her office was filled with advisors, all talking over each other as reports poured in. She raised a hand to silence them, her expression calm but firm. "Enough," she said sharply. "What do we know?" One of her aides stepped forward, holding a tablet. "The invaders call themselves Earth." Their ships appeared near the border and began attacking without provocation. "We've lost nearly a third of our fleet already." Elizabeth frowned, her mind racing. Earth. The name meant nothing to her. There were rumors of ancient human civilizations scattered across the stars, but none of them had ever posed a threat before. Why now? And why were they so advanced? She turned to her military advisor, General Marcus Lane. "Do we have any way to fight back?" Lane hesitated, clearly uneasy. "Their technology is beyond us. Our weapons can't penetrate their defenses. For now, we're outmatched." Elizabeth's jaw tightened. Outmatched wasn't a word the Empire was used to hearing. She leaned forward, resting her hands on the table. "Then find me answers. Who are they? What do they want? And why are they doing this?" As chaos unfolded both in space and on the capital world, Rachel continued her work aboard the asterisk Eagles call asterisk. She sifted through fragments of intercepted communications, searching for clues. Something about Earth felt familiar, though she couldn't place it. Then, buried deep within old files, she found something. A reference to a long-forgotten legend. Ancient humans, once rulers of the galaxy, who vanished centuries ago. Could these invaders truly be their descendants? Her thoughts were interrupted by another explosion. The ship rocked violently, throwing several crew members off balance. Alarms blared, and smoke filled the air. Daniel grabbed onto a railing, steadying himself. "We can't keep this up," he said, his voice strained. "If we don't figure out what they want, we're finished." Rachel nodded, her mind racing. Whatever Earth's intentions were, they weren't going to stop until they got what they came for. And if the Empire didn't act soon, silence would fall, not just on the battlefield, but across the entire Empire. The situation aboard the Eagle's Call was growing desperate. The ship rocked violently as another blast from Earth's fleet narrowly missed its hull. Alarms screamed through the corridors, and the smell of burnt circuits filled the air. Captain William Hayes stood firm on the bridge, his face pale but determined. He barked orders to his crew, trying to keep morale from collapsing entirely. Divert auxiliary power to the engines. We need to stay mobile. Daniel Harper clung to a railing near Rachel Monroe's station, his knuckles white. He watched her work frantically, her fingers flying over the controls as she tried to piece together fragments of intercepted data. Her screen flickered with lines of code and fragmented messages, but nothing made complete sense yet. Earth's ships continued their relentless assault, cutting down Imperial vessels one by one. It was clear that they weren't just fighting. They were dismantling the Empire's forces with cold efficiency. "Anything useful?" Daniel asked, his voice tight with urgency. Rachel shook her head without looking up. "Not yet. Their transmissions are encrypted, and I can't break it fast enough. But," she paused, her eyes narrowing at something on the screen. "There's a pattern here. Every time they fire, there's a spike in energy readings, like they're charging their weapons." Daniel frowned. So maybe we can predict when they'll attack next," she replied quickly. "If we time our maneuvers right, we might be able to dodge some of their shots." Captain Hayes overheard their conversation and turned toward them. "Do it," he ordered. "Buy us as much time as you can." Rachel nodded and got to work, feeding the data into the ship's navigation systems. Within moments, the Eagle's call began weaving through space in erratic patterns, narrowly avoiding several devastating blasts. The crew cheered weakly, but the relief was short-lived. Earth's fleet showed no signs of slowing down. Meanwhile, back on the Empire's capital world, Chancellor Elizabeth Grant sat in her office, staring at a holographic map of the battlefield. Red markers representing destroyed ships dotted the display, while green markers, what was left of the Imperial fleet, were scattered and retreating. Her advisors hovered nearby, whispering among themselves. No one had answers, only questions. "What do they want?" Elizabeth murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "Why are they doing this?" General Marcus Lane stepped forward, his expression grim. "We still don't know, Chancellor. But if we don't find a way to counter them soon, they'll reach the capital within days." Elizabeth's hands tightened into fists. "Then find me a solution. Now." As the meeting dragged on, Rachel finally uncovered something significant. Deep within the archives, buried under layers of classified files, she found an old report about a plague, a deadly virus that had ravaged Earth centuries ago. According to the document, the Empire scientists had secretly engineered the virus as a biological weapon, intending to use it against rival civilizations. But the project had been abandoned after it escaped containment, wiping out millions on Earth before being contained. Rachel's stomach churned as she read the details. Could this be why Earth had returned? Had they come for revenge? She called Daniel over and showed him the file. His face paled as he scanned the text. "This is bad," he said softly. "If Earth knows about this." "They already do," Rachel interrupted, pointing to a line in the report. "Look, it says here that survivors sent out distress signals before the virus wiped them out. Someone must have heard them." Before they could discuss it further, another explosion rocked the ship. This time, part of the ceiling collapsed, sending sparks raining down on the crew. Smoke filled the air, and shouts rang out as people scrambled to contain the damage. Through the chaos, Captain Hayes remained focused. "Status report," he demanded. "We've lost primary shields, sir," an officer shouted back. "Engines are at 60%. We can't keep this up much longer." Hayes clenched his jaw. "Send a message to command. Tell them what we found. If we go down, someone needs to know why." Rachel hesitated, then nodded. She uploaded the file to the communication system and sent it off before turning back to her console. The ship shuddered again, and for a moment, everything went dark. When the lights flickered back on, Earth's fleet loomed closer than ever, their weapons glowing ominously. Daniel looked at Rachel, his expression grim. "If they're here for revenge," he said quietly, We're running out of time to stop them. The Eagle's call limped through space, its damaged hull groaning under the strain. The crew worked tirelessly to keep the ship operational, but morale was at an all-time low. Captain William Hayes stood on the bridge, his face lined with exhaustion. He had sent the distress signal containing Rachel's findings to Imperial Command, but there was no guarantee anyone would receive it in time or believe it. For now, they were on their own. Rachel Monroe sat at her station, staring at the file she had uncovered. The truth about the Empire's role in creating the virus weighed heavily on her. She couldn't stop thinking about the millions of lives lost on Earth centuries ago. What right did the Empire have to judge these invaders when its own hands were stained with blood? Daniel Harper approached her, his expression troubled. "You okay?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "No, none of this is okay. We're fighting for something that doesn't deserve to be saved." Daniel didn't respond immediately. He knew she was right, but saying it out loud felt like betrayal. Still, he couldn't ignore the facts. "What do you think they'll do if they win?" he asked after a moment. "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "But if they're here for revenge, stopping them won't be easy. Maybe we should try talking to them." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Talk? With everything they've done, you think they'll listen?" "It's worth a shot," she insisted. "If we can explain what we found, show them we know the truth, they might see we're not all monsters." Before Daniel could reply, Captain Hayes called them over. His voice was calm but firm. "We've got incoming. One of their ships is breaking formation and heading straight for us." The crew scrambled to prepare, but the ship showed no signs of hostility. Instead, it slowed to a halt just outside their range. A new transmission crackled through the speakers. "This is Commander Laura Evans of Earth. Identify yourselves." Hayes hesitated, then stepped forward. "This is Captain William Hayes of the Imperial cruiser Eagle's Call *. We mean no harm." There was a long pause before Evans responded. "You've caused enough harm already. Why should I believe you?" Rachel stepped forward, surprising everyone. "Because we know why you're here," she said firmly. "We know about the virus, about what the Empire did to your people." Another pause followed, longer this time. When Evans spoke again, her tone was colder. "And how exactly do you know that?" "We found records," Rachel explained, "buried deep in our archives. It wasn't supposed to get out, but we uncovered the truth. Not everyone in the Empire supports what happened. Some of us want to make things right." Evans didn't respond immediately. On the main screen, her ship loomed silently, its sleek design reflecting the light of a distant star. Finally, she spoke. "Prove it. Send me the files." Rachel quickly uploaded the documents and transmitted them to Earth's ship. The wait felt endless as everyone held their breath. Minutes passed before Evans replied. "These files, they confirm what we already knew. But knowing the truth doesn't erase the past." "We understand," Hayes said carefully. "But punishing innocent people won't bring back those you lost." Evans's voice softened slightly, though it remained guarded. "Innocent. Your leaders engineered a weapon that nearly wiped out my entire species. Do you expect me to forgive that?" "No," Rachel interjected. "We don't expect forgiveness. But destroying the Empire won't change anything. If you want justice, start by holding the ones responsible accountable, not the whole population." For a moment, no one spoke. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Then Evans sighed. "I'll take your words under consideration. But know this. If you're lying, I won't hesitate to finish what we started." With that, the transmission ended, and Earth's ship moved away. The crew let out a collective breath, though no one felt truly relieved. They had bought themselves some time, but the battle was far from over. Later, as the Eagle's Call drifted further from the front lines, Rachel turned to Daniel. "Do you think she believed us?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but at least we tried." Captain Hayes joined them, his expression thoughtful. "Whether she believes us or not, One thing is clear. The Empire has a lot to answer for. And if we survive this, things are going to change. For better or worse. As silence settled over the ship once more, Rachel couldn't help but wonder what the future held. Would Earth show mercy? Or would the cycle of violence continue unchecked? Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. The Empire would never be the same again. The fragile truce between the Eagle's Call and Earth's forces didn't last long. Back on the Empire's capital world, Chancellor Elizabeth Grant was losing control. The revelation of the Empire's role in engineering the virus had spread like wildfire. Thanks to Rachel's intercepted transmission, citizens were outraged, demanding answers from their leaders. Protests erupted in major cities, with crowds chanting for justice and accountability. Amid the chaos, Governor Samuel Drake saw an opportunity. He ruled one of the wealthiest systems in the Empire, and his loyalty to the central government had always been questionable. Now, with Earth's fleet advancing toward the capital, he decided it was time to act. Drake secretly contacted Commander Laura Evans, offering to provide critical information about the Empire's defenses in exchange for leniency for his people. Evans listened carefully to his proposal. "Why should I trust you?" she asked bluntly. "Because I'm giving you what you need to end this quickly," Drake replied. "The Empire's leadership is crumbling. If you strike now, you can take them down without further bloodshed." Evans hesitated but eventually agreed to meet him aboard her flagship. Drake fled his system in a private shuttle, carrying encrypted data detailing the Empire's weakest points. Unbeknownst to him, Daniel Harper and Rachel Monroe intercepted fragments of his communication while monitoring transmissions from the Eagle's Call. Rachel frowned as she analyzed the signal. "This doesn't look good," she said, pointing at her screen. "Someone high up is defecting, and they're giving Earth everything they need to crush us." Daniel leaned closer, his face pale. "Do we tell Hayes?" Before Rachel could answer, Captain William Hayes approached them. "What's going on?" he asked sharply. Rachel explained the situation, showing him the evidence. Hayes' expression darkened. "If Drake succeeds, Earth will have no reason to negotiate. We need to stop him." But stopping Drake wasn't easy. His shuttle was already en route to Earth's fleet, moving too fast for the damaged Eagle's Call to intercept. Rachel worked frantically to decode more of the transmission, hoping to find a way to sabotage the plan. Meanwhile, Daniel prepared the ship's remaining weapons, ready to engage if necessary. Back on the capital world, Chancellor Grant learned of Drake's betrayal. Her advisors urged her to arrest him. But it was too late. He had already escaped. Furious, she ordered a full-scale crackdown on dissent, arresting anyone suspected of sympathizing with Earth. The streets filled with soldiers, and fear gripped the population. As Drake neared Earth's flagship, Evans greeted him coldly. "You're taking a big risk," she said as he stepped onto her bridge. "How do I know you won't turn on us too?" Drake handed over the data chip containing the Empire's secrets. "You don't, but I'm doing this for my people. They deserve a chance to survive." Evans studied him for a moment before nodding. "We'll see how valuable your information is." Unbeknownst to both of them, Rachel had managed to insert a hidden virus into the data Drake transmitted. It would scramble Earth's targeting systems temporarily, giving the Empire a slim window to regroup. She looked at Daniel, exhaustion etched on her face. "It's done," she said softly. "Now we wait." Daniel nodded, though doubt lingered in his eyes. "Do you think it'll be enough?" "It has to be," Rachel replied. "Otherwise, there won't be anything left to save." As Earth's fleet prepared to launch its final assault, tension mounted across the galaxy. The fate of billions hung in the balance, and no one, not even Evans or Grant, knew how it would end. For Daniel and Rachel, the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. They had done all they could, but the outcome was out of their hands. Silence fell once more, heavy with uncertainty. The hidden virus Rachel had embedded in Governor Drake's data began to take effect as Earth's fleet prepared for its final push. Their targeting systems faltered, causing confusion among their ranks. Ships hesitated, unsure of their coordinates and unable to lock onto Imperial vessels with their usual precision. It was a small victory, but it gave the Empire a brief reprieve. Captain William Hayes wasted no time. "This is our chance," he said firmly, addressing his crew on the Eagle's call. "We need to hit them hard while they're vulnerable." Rachel and Daniel exchanged a glance. The plan was risky, but they didn't have many options left. Rachel quickly updated the navigation system to plot a course toward Earth's flagship, where Commander Laura Evans was stationed. If they could disable her ship, it might disrupt the entire fleet. Daniel volunteered to lead the mission. "I'll take one of the prototype fighters," he said. "It's fast enough to slip past their defenses." Hayes nodded, though worry flickered in his eyes. "You'll need someone to cover you. Monroe, you're with him." Rachel hesitated. She wasn't trained for combat, but she knew the importance of the mission. "Understood, sir." Within minutes, Daniel and Rachel were strapped into the cockpit of the prototype fighter. The small craft hummed with energy as it detached from the Eagle's call and sped toward Earth's flagship. The journey was tense. Enemy ships fired at them sporadically, forcing Daniel to weave through the chaos with expert maneuvers. As they approached the flagship, Rachel monitored the ship's systems, searching for weaknesses. "Their shields are still up, but they're weaker than before," she reported. "If we can get close enough, we might be able to breach them." Daniel gritted his teeth, focusing on the controls. "Hold on tight." He guided the fighter into a narrow gap between two larger ships, narrowly avoiding collisions. When they reached the flagship, he activated the experimental weapon mounted on the fighter, a pulse designed to overload shielding systems. The weapon discharged with a bright flash, and for a moment, it seemed like nothing happened. Then, cracks appeared in the flagship's shields. "It worked," Rachel exclaimed. "We've got an opening." Before they could celebrate, alarms blared inside the cockpit. Several enemy fighters were closing in, their weapons locked onto the small craft. Daniel pushed the fighter to its limits, dodging blasts as he made a break for safety. The ship shook violently under the strain, and smoke filled the cabin. "We're not going to make it," Rachel said, gripping her seat tightly. "Yes, we are," Daniel shot back, his voice steady despite the danger. With one last burst of speed, he slipped through the pursuing fighters and rejoined the Eagle's call, which had moved into position to cover their retreat. Back aboard the cruiser, Captain Hayes greeted them with relief. "Good work. Their flagship is crippled for now." But the battle wasn't over. Earth's fleet regrouped quickly, adapting to the disruption caused by Rachel's virus. Commander Evans contacted the Eagle's call, her tone sharp with anger. "You think this changes anything? You're delaying the inevitable." Rachel stepped forward, her voice firm despite her fear. "Commander, listen to me. We don't want to fight anymore. Let us prove that not everyone in the Empire supports what happened. Give us a chance to fix this." Evans paused, considering the plea. Finally, she responded, "You have 24 hours. Use that time wisely." As the transmission ended, Hayes turned to his crew. "We've bought ourselves some time, but we need a plan, and fast." Rachel looked at Daniel, determination in her eyes. "We need to expose the truth to everyone. Show both sides that peace is possible." Daniel nodded. "Let's do it. For all our sakes." With Earth's ultimatum looming, the crew of the Eagle's call prepared for what might be their most important mission yet, finding a way to bridge two civilizations on the brink of destruction. The 24-hour deadline loomed over the crew of the Eagle's Call like a storm cloud. Rachel Monroe worked tirelessly at her station, piecing together evidence that could sway both Earth and the Empire toward peace. She gathered recordings of Imperial leaders discussing the virus, old scientific reports, and testimonies from historians who had studied the Empire's dark past. Every file was a piece of a puzzle that painted a clear picture. The Empire had committed unspeakable acts, but not everyone supported them. Daniel Harper stood nearby, watching her with quiet admiration. "Do you really think this will work?" he asked. "It has to," Rachel replied without looking up. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she compiled the data into a single broadcast. "If we can show Earth that there are people within the Empire willing to take responsibility, maybe they'll see we're not all monsters." Captain William Hayes approached them, his face lined with worry. "Time's running out. Are you ready?" Rachel nodded. "Almost. Just need a few more minutes." Hayes turned to Daniel. "Get the communication systems online. We're going to live across all frequencies." As Rachel finalized the broadcast, the tension on the bridge was palpable. The crew knew the stakes. If Earth rejected their message, the war would resume, and the Empire would fall. But if they succeeded, there was a chance, however slim, for peace. Finally, Rachel gave the signal. "It's ready." Hayes took a deep breath and stepped in front of the camera. His voice was calm but firm as he began speaking. "To the people of Earth and the Empire, hear us out. What happened centuries ago cannot be undone, but hiding from the truth only perpetuates the cycle of violence. We've uncovered proof of the Empire's crimes, and we share it now not to justify them, but to acknowledge them." The screen switched to Rachel's compilation. Grainy footage of scientists discussing the virus, documents detailing its creation, and maps showing its devastating spread across Earth. The images were haunting, leaving no room for denial. When the footage ended, Hayes spoke again. "Not everyone in the Empire supports these actions. Many of us want to make amends and build a better future. If you destroy us, you'll erase any chance of justice or reconciliation. Give us the opportunity to change." The transmission ended, and silence fell over the ship. Everyone waited anxiously for a response. Minutes passed, each one feeling like an eternity. Then, Commander Laura Evans appeared on the main screen, her expression unreadable. "You've given us much to consider," she said finally. "But words alone won't undo the suffering your leaders caused." "We know," Rachel interjected, stepping into view. "And we're not asking for forgiveness. We're asking for a chance to prove we can do better. Work with us to hold the guilty accountable and rebuild what's been broken." Evans studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Very well. We'll stand down for now. But understand this. If you fail to deliver on your promises, we will finish what we started." Relief washed over the crew, though it was short-lived. Hayes turned to his team. "This isn't over. We need to act fast." Back on the Capital World, Chancellor Elizabeth Grant watched the broadcast with a mix of rage and fear. Her advisors urged her to retaliate, but public opinion had shifted. Citizens demanded accountability, and protests grew louder. Grant realized she had no choice but to cooperate or risk losing everything. As the Empire began implementing reforms, Rachel and Daniel looked out at the stars from the Asterisk Eagle's call asterisk. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, there was hope. Silence no longer meant defeat. It meant the possibility of a new beginning. The days that followed were tense but transformative. Across the Empire, people began to demand change. The broadcast from the Eagle's call had ignited a firestorm of protests and calls for justice. Imperial leaders who had once wielded unchecked power found themselves under scrutiny, their crimes exposed to the public. Chancellor Elizabeth Grant struggled to maintain control, but her grip on the government was slipping. In several systems, local governors declared independence, vowing to cooperate with Earth rather than resist. On board the Asterisk Eagle's call asterisk, Rachel Monroe and Daniel Harper worked alongside Captain William Hayes to coordinate efforts between Earth and the Empire. It wasn't easy, trust was fragile, and old wounds ran deep, but progress was being made. Earth's fleet remained stationed near the capital, a constant reminder of the consequences of failure. Commander Laura Evans kept her word, holding back her forces while negotiations continued, though she made it clear that patience had its limits. Rachel spent hours speaking with Earth's representatives, sharing information and helping them understand the complexities of the Empire's structure. "It's not just about punishing the guilty," she explained during one meeting. "It's about creating something better for everyone. If we don't fix what's broken, history will repeat itself." Evans listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. "You're asking us to forgive centuries of suffering. That's not easy." "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Rachel replied softly. "I'm asking for a chance to rebuild, to make sure no one else has to suffer like your people did." Back on the capital world, Chancellor Grant reluctantly agreed to step down, paving the way for a provisional government. Leaders from both Earth and the Empire came together to draft new laws, focusing on accountability, transparency, and cooperation. It was messy and slow, but it was a start. Daniel often found himself reflecting on how far they'd come. One evening, as he stood on the bridge of the Eagle's Call *, he turned to Rachel. "Do you think this is going to work? Really work?" She smiled faintly, leaning against the railing beside him. "I don't know, but I think it's worth trying. For the first time, people are talking instead of fighting. That's something, right?" He nodded, looking out at the stars. "Yeah, something." As weeks turned into months, signs of hope began to emerge. Joint projects between Earth and the Empire led to advancements in technology and medicine, benefiting both sides. Refugees displaced by the conflict were given aid, and efforts were made to preserve the histories of those affected by the virus. The scars of the past wouldn't fade overnight, but healing had begun. Captain Hayes watched these developments with quiet pride. His crew had played a pivotal role in averting catastrophe, and though the road ahead would be long, he believed they had set the galaxy on a better path. "We've done good work," he told Rachel and Daniel one day. "But the real test is yet to come. Building peace is harder than waging war." Rachel nodded. "We'll keep working. As long as there's even a small chance to make things right, it's worth it." In the end, silence no longer fell over the Empire as a sign of defeat or fear. Instead, it became a moment of reflection, a pause to consider how far they'd come and how much further they still had to go. For Daniel and Rachel, standing side by side as they gazed at the endless expanse of space, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it felt possible. And sometimes, that was enough.